Okay, so now that we've gotten through the vocabulary of the circles and learned about the standard form of the equation of a circle, what we've done so far is write the equation of a circle. Well, now in part two, we're going to go in the opposite direction. Instead of writing the equation, we're going to be given the equation, and we're going to give from the equation the center point and the radius length. So on the bottom of page 4, you'll see a couple of examples. The first one, and I have written here, I've actually typed it, the standard form equation. So you'll see that I have x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared. So in this case, remember I talked about how it looked like the sign was changing from either positive to negative or negative to positive, and that's because of this subtraction sign. So when you see a plus, what's really happening is it's subtracting a negative number. So if I want to know what the k value is, here I see a positive 2, but because of this double negative, that double negative got changed into that positive. So this is really the opposite of positive 2, which is negative 2. Over here with the h, you can see that I have x minus h, or x minus 3. That means that's a little easier. You can see that the 3 is in the spot where the h is. Now, this looks again like a negative 3, but really it's being subtracted. It's a positive 3 that is being subtracted. So again, when we look at x minus 3 and we see a negative number, we want to take the opposite sign out. It's going to be a little awkward for a little while, but that's the easiest way to remember it. Now, in order to find out what r is, this is a little more difficult for kids because in the equation, this is r squared. What we have here is r squared equals 16. I'm going to write that out. I'd like you to write that in your notes. So I have to figure out, what value of r, when I square it, would give me 16. So I need to come up with a number that when I square it would give me 16. And if you can't think of that, what we can do is do a little work here with the square root signs. We can take the square root of both sides and go over to the Desmos calculator. I just have to pull it up. Give me 1 sec. So if I find the square root sign, which is down here on the bottom, and type in 16, it's going to immediately give me my r value. So my radius is 4. This is my center, 3, -2. Now, one of the things that we can do is we can use the Desmos calculator, type in the equation, and see if our center point, the 3, -2, and the radius length, the 4, makes sense. So I'm going to go type that in, x minus 3. I'm going to find the squared button, plus y plus 2 squared equals 16. And then I'm just going to drag this graph a little bit so we can see it. So the center point is going to be somewhere here. But what do we think the center point is? We think the center point is 3, -2. So let's go check. Let's go over here. This is 1. This is 2, and I can always make this look a little bit better. Those increments are kind of silly. That's a little better. We can go 1, 2, 3, and down 2 right here. And that definitely looks like the center of the circle. And then we can test to see what is our radius. Well, let's count from the center over to the edge. 1 box, 2 boxes, 3 boxes, 4 boxes. So that is a radius length of 4. That's how we do that. We go backwards. Now in the next example, you can see that I have also typed the standard form of the circle, and I see a positive 1. So remember, that's really y minus that negative 1. So we take the opposite sign. And if it looks like a positive 1 in the equation, it's a negative 1 outside the equation. Now, what about this guy? This is an x squared. We haven't seen much of that. We may have seen a few earlier, but remember, this is x minus 0 squared. So when you just see, and this is a good reminder from earlier, when you just see an x squared or a y squared without anything being added or subtracted from it, then that coordinate is a 0. That means it's just a plain 0. Nothing has been subtracted. Now, the last thing we have to do, r squared equals 4. So r squared equals 4. So what number? Well, let's take the square root. Square root of r squared is r. Square root of 4. Most of you might know that's 2. But let's take a look. How do we do that again? Square root of 4 is 2. So that is our radius. So let's go check this out. Let's type this in. X squared, y plus 1 squared, and 4. And let's see if we get the right information. I love checking my answers because it just helps me know if I did things right. There's a lot of swapping of signs. Okay, so let's take a look at this. We're going to make it just a little bit bigger. Okay, so we think that our center point is 0, negative 1. Let's go take a look. And we think that our radius is 2. So if we start at the origin, 0 in the x direction, negative 1 in the y direction, that is the center of the circle. You can very easily see that's right in the middle. And how big is my radius? We'll see these boxes. This is 1 and 2. So if I start here at the center, that's 1, that's 2. So you got to kind of look at the scale on the graph, but we are correct. We have a center of 0, negative 1, and a radius that is 2 units long. So we did a great job. So when we come back on the next page, we're going to try, I think it's this one that I have already done. Yep. And what you're going to see is this one that I did in the Desmos calculator for you first during this video, the x minus 3. And I'm going to go ahead and label it here. So we think that this was a 3, negative 2. That's just from the previous page. And we think that our r squared is 16, so our r was 4. And what I'd like you to do on this graph on the next page is start right at the origin and go 1, that's our 1, go 2, go 3, and go down negative 2. See, that's a negative 2. Little exercise in graphing here, folks. That is definitely our center. And then we think the radius is 4. So this is, I'm going to make this a 3. This is going to be a 5. So every 2 boxes is a unit. So 3 to 4, that's 1. 4 to 5, that's 2. 5 to 6 is 3, and 6 to 7 is 4. So this has a radius of 1, 2, 3, 4. That's the way that Desmos can help us the most. So when we come back together here in just a moment, we are going to be practicing finding the center and radius of each circle and using our Desmos calculator to check and see if that makes sense. Thanks, guys.